So, what happens when a country with two official languages tries to teach a third? Today, we're digging into this amazing story of resilience and discovery from Paraguay. It's all about how researchers like Dr. Valentina Canese are using real data to solve some of the nation's toughest educational puzzles.
And really, it all boils down to this one big question. Paraguay has this incredibly unique linguistic landscape. You've got Spanish, and you've got the indigenous language Guarani. Both are official. So you can imagine trying to bring in a third language, English. That's a whole different ballgame. How on earth do teachers even start? Well, let's dive in.
Okay, so our story kicks off with something we all remember, right? The COVID-19 pandemic. And for Paraguay, this was way more than just a health crisis. It basically put their entire education system under a microscope, a massive stress test that forced everyone to change how they teach and learn, practically overnight. So, to really get what was going on, we have to talk about this term emergency remote teaching, or ERT. And this is super important. This is not the same thing as regular online classes that are planned out for months. Nope. ERT is what you do when there's a crisis, you have to pivot, and you have to do it fast. That difference is everything.
And in Paraguay, this meant the whole system. I mean, from kindergarten all the way to universities, had to go remote in a flash. We're talking about universities moving more than 2,000 programs online. The government even rolled out this big national platform, Tu Escuela en Casa, which means your school at home, just to try and keep things going for teachers and students.
So you gotta wonder, what did this actually look like for the teachers in the trenches, especially English teachers? Well, a 2023 study led by Dr. Kanice, which you can find in the International Journal of Technology and Education, decided to find out exactly that. And they didn't just ask a few people. They surveyed 184 English teachers from all over. We're talking public schools, private ones, even special language institutes. This gave them this incredible, wide-angle view of the real-deal challenges teachers were up against.
And what they found? Wow, it was eye-opening. Turns out it wasn't just about whether or not you had a laptop. The biggest factors were all about the people. Things like how comfortable were teachers with the tech in the first place? What kind of training did they get or not get? And maybe most importantly, could they actually make the technology work for their lessons? Researchers have a fancy term for it, technology appropriation, but it really just means the person behind the screen matters just as much as the screen itself.
All right, let's switch gears a bit to another huge challenge. This one isn't so much about the tools of teaching, but the what. We're talking about a core goal of education: critical thinking. And what the research uncovered here was this really surprising disconnect between what teachers thought was happening and what was actually happening. So, get this. In one really interesting study, language teachers in Paraguay were asked to rate their own critical thinking skills. And on a scale of 1 to 5, they gave themselves, on average, a 4.6. That's pretty confident, right? But, and here's the kicker, the study found that this super high self-rating didn't always match up with the teaching methods they were using. As Dr. Canese, the author, put it, their high self-assessment does not always relate to the practices they report using with their students. And that really gets to the heart of it. There was this gap, right? Teachers felt they were great critical thinkers, but the way they were teaching wasn't always designed to build those same skills in their students. And just finding that gap, just identifying it, that's the crucial first step to figuring out how to fix it. Okay, so let's zoom out for a second. We've been talking about individual classrooms, but these issues, they don't just happen in a bubble. They're all connected to a much bigger, more complicated national system. So when the researchers took a hard look at Paraguay's national policy for teaching English, they saw some pretty significant roadblocks. I mean, the rules weren't being applied the same way everywhere, there weren't enough well-trained teachers, and there was this huge gap between what the policy said should be happening and what was really going on in schools. Which, of course, leads to the million-dollar question, right? When you're up against problems this big, this tangled up in the whole system, where do you even start to fix it? Well, the answer they came up with is brilliant. You build a network. And that's exactly what the Aula Payahu project is all about. It's this massive team effort to link up all of Paraguay's higher education institutions. The goal is to build a whole culture of research and new ideas for training teachers. And just to be clear, this isn't some small project from one single university. No way.
This is a huge network of both public and private schools all over the country, all pulling in the same direction, working to get the hard data they need to make smarter education policy. And you know what? It's already making a difference. Alapayu has already funded 24 different research projects. And they're tackling everything you can imagine, from how to use tech in rural schools to brand new ways of teaching math and science. So, okay, we've looked at these three big challenges, right? The whole pandemic emergency, that critical thinking gap, and these huge system-wide policy problems. So, where does that leave us? What's the way forward? How does all this research actually fit together? Well, when you look at the whole story, a really clear path starts to emerge. It's kind of like three big steps. Step 1, the pandemic forced everyone to integrate technology, like it or not. Step 2, the research showed they needed to fine-tune how they teach their pedagogy to really focus on skills like critical thinking. And now, step 3, these amazing networks like Alapayu are using real local data to make the national policy stronger. You see how each one builds right on top of the other? And that kind of brings us to the big takeaway here. This story about Paraguay, it's really not just about Paraguay. It makes you think, and it leaves us with this powerful question for everyone, everywhere. What if the real secret to fixing education isn't some generic one-size-fits-all plan? What if it's all about empowering local researchers to find their own data-driven answers to their own unique problems?